Welcome to the channel which should not exist. Your cursed friend is here with 2 spooky episodes about young people in grave danger. First, we'll visit a school of innocents who are targeted by cosmic horror. After, we'll ride the bus on a detour into a cursed tunnel. Now turn off the lights and settle in. The show has begun, whether you like it or not. There was a school that became well known for producing students who were open-hearted and kind. Some people scoffed and called these children gullible, and they weren't entirely wrong. These were students with only goodness in their hearts, with no concept of the evil that could exist in the world. They were innocent, they were sheltered, they were in trouble. Behind this school stood a little shack. It was a very plain and uninteresting building, but the students and the teachers understood that this grim little shack was the home of the school janitor. The man was a new hire, replacing the former janitor who had mysteriously died at the end of the school year. The previous janitor had been beloved by all the students and staff, but this new janitor didn't enjoy the same popularity. In fact, most of the students were just the tiniest bit scared of the man, even though he didn't talk to anyone. The students had been taught to be friendly and understanding, but it was as though the janitor wanted nothing to do with any of them and only tolerated them because he must. No one dared to visit the janitor in his cold little home. In time, students couldn't help making up stories about what was inside it. Some said he kept vicious dogs, which had a hunger for young human flesh. Others insisted it was children he kept caged up, whose cries couldn't be heard through the shack's thick stone walls. The story circulated year after year, growing more and more outlandish, until one year, truth became stranger than fiction. That was the year the nightmare began. Out of nowhere, the well-liked captain of the basketball team fatally attacked a teammate after practice, using a pair of scissors. Even more horrifying, the captain cut off a piece of his victim's skin, which was never recovered. The rumors claimed it was because he had eaten it. The basketball captain was taken into custody, but he behaved like a zombie and seemed unaware of his crime. He couldn't answer any questions about what he had done or why, but he did wear a strange, disturbing smile. Time was given to the students and staff for grieving. The janitor could be seen cleaning the empty hallways while everyone else struggled to recover. The spooky stories about him were forgotten in the wake of this real-life horror story. Eventually, school resumed, and everyone tried their best to move on. A month later, however, horror struck again. The school's best cheerleader attacked her boyfriend beneath the bleachers. She, too, used a pair of scissors to cut off part of his skin, and just as with the first victim, that piece was never found. Rumors of cannibalism rushed through the school again. The cheerleader couldn't provide answers. She seemed to exist in a daze and couldn't respond to questions about why she had committed this crime. Though oddly, she seemed content and almost satisfied. Students were terrified of the next attack. The school principal banned all scissors from the classrooms, hoping it would prevent another occurrence. Only 9 days later, it happened again. A science student attacked his best friend. He too cut off a piece of the victim's skin as a souvenir, and it disappeared. The school was in an uproar. Students, previously friends, began to accuse each other of suspicious activity. Teachers were afraid to be alone with children they had once believed were well-behaved. The police was inundated with anonymous tips, but didn't have the manpower to investigate them all. And the janitor? He laughed at them all, seeming to take a malicious pleasure in their terror. His attitude caught the attention of the school body president, Maria, and her best friend, Dev. Why, they wondered, was the janitor the only person unafraid after the series of gruesome attacks? He should be more afraid since he lives behind the school, Maria said. He's closer to where the attacks occur. I think we should investigate his home, Dev suggested. Thus, during the middle of the school day, while the janitor was busy cleaning up messes from lunch, Maria and Deb snuck behind the school and up to the janitor's small shack. There weren't any windows for them to peer through, So with Maria keeping lookout, Dev broke the lock on the door. The two friends crept inside. The interior of the shack consisted of a single room. A cot sat in the middle of it, with some clothes tossed carelessly on the floor beneath it. But the two students were more shocked by what they found on the walls. They were covered from floor to ceiling with hundreds of scissors. They weren't ordinary school scissors. These ones seemed to glow and vibrate where they hung from the walls, as though insects were trapped inside them, trying to burst free. "Curiosity's gonna kill a couple of kittens," said a voice from behind Maria and Dev. A rough shove sent the student stumbling into the center of the room, while the janitor slammed the shack door shut and stood in front of it. The scissors on the wall vibrated more fiercely in excitement. Hundreds of voices called out to the students in a variety of languages, some speaking backwards, or using languages that had never before been heard on the earth. "What's that sound?" Maria cried. She covered her ears with her hands. "Make them stop!" "They're calling to be let out," the janitor said with a gleeful cackle. His eyes went wide and crazy as he pointed at the walls of scissors. "A soul in each, a soul for a soul. What better place for offerings than a school full of innocent souls, ripe for the plucking?" The man laughed maniacally and reached up to the nearest wall. He gave Maria and Dev a devilish look as he plucked a vibrating pair of scissors from a nail. "Who has the purest heart?" the janitor demanded of the students. Dev and Maria, huddled on the ground together, didn't understand what he meant. But suddenly a fiery pain lanced through Dev's head, forcing him to cry out. "So it's you," the janitor said. With wild eyes, he extended the pair of scissors to the boy. "It's your turn now." Dev felt his arm move of its own accord, his hand reaching for the cursed scissors. He shook his head in horror, but he couldn't stop himself. His fingers closed over the plastic candles, and suddenly a voice was inside his head, telling him what to do. The janitor laughed and clapped as Dev used the scissors to attack his friend. Maria didn't stand a chance despite her pleas. In only seconds, she lay collapsed on the floor of the shack, lifeless. The janitor nodded approvingly and moved to the only piece of furniture in the shack besides the cot, a tall wooden closet. He opened the doors, revealing a strange, humanoid figure propped inside. Its skin was mangled and drooped in places. It was streaked with dried blood. "The master's becoming is nearing completion," the janitor cried. "Help the master to return to us." With glazed eyes, Dev used the scissors to cut a piece of skin from his best friend. He carried it to the closet, where the janitor sewed it to the horrible figure. "The master will free you and reward you soon," the janitor told Dev. "Be patient. The master is nearly here." With a strange, contented smile on his face, Dev walked out of the shack. A half hour later, he was discovered wandering the sidewalk in front of the school, a pair of stained scissors in his hand. The school should have shut down, but there were no other schools in the remote county to take in so many students, and so the horror continued for the remainder of the year, with more cursed scissors given free rein to commit their evil mission amongst the innocent students. Despite the terrible things happening in the school, the janitor's mood noticeably improved. He had become the friendliest person on campus, but no one understood why. Until one day, he opened his closet and introduced a new friend, a friend who was not very nice at all. The end of the school year typically meant moving on and fresh beginnings for most students, but for some, it could be one of the worst times of their lives. Cora could tell that her friend Eric was upset. Since the moment the bell sounded, signaling the end of the exam, Eric had kept his eyes on the ground as he walked beside her to the bus yard. He hadn't responded to her teasing, and he refused to smile. It was as though his world had ended, but she didn't understand how. The bus taking them home trundled along its usual route, though Cora noticed the route was narrowing. "Lots of traffic cones ahead," she said to Eric. "I wonder if it's because of that weird flooding we've been having lately. My dad says lots of parts of town smell like dead fish now. Isn't that strange?" Anyway, if the road's closed, we're going to get stuck on a 2-hour detour home. Good, Eric muttered. It was the first word he'd spoken in an hour. Come on, Cora said. You've been studying for weeks just like I have, and I think I did all right. Enough to get into the college I want anyway. Your school is easier to get into, Eric mumbled. Cora frowned. That's rude. He shrugged. It's true. You're not under pressure. You're going for the same school your big sisters attended. You could probably fail the test and still get in. Oh yeah, Cora challenged. Then it sounds like maybe you should be trying to get into this school too, since you've obviously screwed up on the test today. Eric turned a dark, baleful eye on her. It was a look she'd never seen from her friend before. No way, she whispered in shock. I was only joking. You couldn't have failed. My parents, Eric said slowly and clearly, will kill me when they find out. All my life they've been expecting me to go to their school. They've told all their friends, all my friends. It's never once entered their minds that I wouldn't be able to get in. Maybe you didn't do as badly as you think, Cora said. I know exactly how badly I did. I failed. I won't be going to that college or to any other college for that matter. I've ruined my life. They lapsed into a grim silence as the bus bounced over the road. The vehicle made a few stops to let off other students, but as Cora had predicted, road work ahead slowed the bus's progress. We're taking a detour, the bus driver called back to the students. You can call your parents and tell them we'll be about 20 minutes late. Cora took out her phone and did exactly that, but Eric didn't move a muscle. Don't you want to tell your parents? She asked him, so they don't worry? They won't worry about me once they hear about my test results, he said in a dead voice. The bus turned off the main road and entered the black mouth of a tunnel. Cora had never been this way, or traveled inside the tunnel before. She was surprised by how dark the interior was. She could barely make out the students sitting in the seats ahead of her. I don't like this, she said. Eric snorted as he looked at the windows of the blackness. Why, afraid of the boogeyman is out there? The bus hit a large bump, bouncing the students high in their seats. Some of them screamed, while others giggled nervously. Cora looked out the window in confusion. There shouldn't be any speed bumps in a tunnel, especially not one as large as what they'd driven over. Something could be out there, Eric said. Something vengeful and awful that'll eat us all. Maybe then my parents will have a reason to care about me. That's an awful thing to say. Except it's true, Eric tapped the blackened window. They only care about college, not about me. I should do something. Something that'll really make them sorry. You're sick. She looked at the other students in the bus to see if anyone else acted as weirdly as Eric. She was surprised to see that there were more students in the seats than only a few seconds ago. She strained to see them more clearly in the dark, but it was impossible to identify them by the backs of their heads. Jenny, she called out to her friend 4 rows up. Who are you sitting with? Jenny looked back at Cora. Who are you talking about? Then Jenny saw the student sitting beside her. Her scream startled the rest of the students, who reacted with horror upon discovering the extra passengers sitting beside them. The supernatural figure sat calmly as the bus continued deeper into the tunnel. I stole a dress, said a female voice at Cora's left shoulder. Cora was terrified to see who or what had materialized beside her. It turned out to be the shadowy figure of a girl. My parents would have been so ashamed of me if the town found out I was a thief, the strange girl continued. I couldn't let that happen. I would have done anything not to face them with the truth. What did you do? Eric asked, his voice full of desperation. Cora stared at him in shock. Eric, what did you do? Eric repeated. I got off the bus and let fate take me. I couldn't go home to face my parents' disappointment, but fate wanted me no matter how bad of a person I was. Eric's not bad just because he failed a test, Cora protested. But Eric is hopeless, aren't you, Eric? You're tired of trying, and you should be. All you do is fail when you try. It's true, Eric whispered. The bus hit another weird bump, that caused Cora to fall to the side. Her hand touched something wet and sticky, like oil or mucus, and it smelled like rotting fish and molding seaweed. She gasped and jerked back against Eric. He pushed her off him. "I don't want to go home either," he told the weird girl. "I can't." "Then don't. Fate is waiting for you. Fate will take care of you. All you need to do is meet it." Cora grabbed at Eric as he stepped over her into the aisle. He shook her off and strode through the bus. Cora heard the familiar squeaking sound of the bus door opening. She waited for the bus to slow down, but it didn't. A loud, watery growl echoed through the tunnel. The stench of the deep sea poured inside the bus. The vehicle jolted again. This time Cora was certain whatever they'd driven over had been firm, but spongy, almost like rubber stretched over meat. Eric screamed. The bus door squeaked closed. Cora sat up, trembling. Eric wasn't by the door. The extra passengers in the bus had vanished too. Blinding light pierced her eyes as the bus emerged from the tunnel. "Wait!" she cried. "What happened to Eric?" The other students looked back at her in confusion. "He left the bus," she told them. "Didn't you see? Something grabbed him." A few students smirked at her. The bus continued on as though nothing were wrong. Cora turned to look out the back window at the receding tunnel. There was only clear road behind her, stretching back through the town as far as she could see. No tunnel, no road cones. It was almost as though she'd imagined everything, except her hand was still sticky and reeked of the deep, dark ocean. Beside her on the seat, Eric's phone began to ring. His parents were calling, eager to know how he'd done on the test today. Cora had no idea how to tell them that fate wasn't merely a concept. It was very much alive, and it had taken their son.